Hey everybody. So I was having a conversation with someone the other day. I'll never mention the name. And I don't know how we got on the subject of popping X pills, but that's a trigger for me. Anybody who knows me personally and knows my story, you understand how serious of a trigger that is. Something as small as an X pill completely changed my entire life, flipped my whole world upside down in the blink of an eye. I'm gonna try my hardest not to drag this video out too long, because I know with everybody's busy schedule, or lack thereof right now because of the quarantine, it's hard to sit still and just stop life for a long period of time just to watch a YouTube video. Anyway, this person, I assume is probably close to my age. I'm 43, and was saying that he still pops these pills from time to time, and how much he liked them, and so on and so on. And I tried not to be too judgmental, because he was a pretty intelligent guy and really nice guy, very well put together. And what seems to be responsible. That was my first encounter with him. But anyway, it just made me think, I go through Facebook, my timeline, people's stories. I talk to people. I work around a lot of different people, ages, ethnic backgrounds, just everything. So I encounter people with a lot of different stories and backgrounds. And I'm noticing a lot of people this day and age glorify this shit, these X pills, as if, it's the hottest thing going. Whole time, the funny part is that a lot of them are drug dealers themselves, and I'm not judging you. I used to be one of you. But here you are, you're selling dope, you're selling heroin, you're selling weed, whatever you're selling. And you got the audacity to talk about the people you're selling it to as if you're any different. And if you think you are, I need you to explain to me how so. It's as simple as Googling the ingredients in an ecstasy pill. Bam, there you go. A lot of it is the same shit that you're selling on a daily basis that's helping you glorify the street life, which is also a lot of the root cause for our kids getting killed out in these streets. But that's another story, another subject rather. Anyway, not to mention the effects that it has on you. And you can deny it all you want, but if it hasn't had that effect on you per se, I guarantee it's had that effect on somebody who is also doing X. I always say I was married to Satan himself, but my ex-husband went from being my protector, my security, the love of my life, who I say was my soulmate for many years, to being the devil himself, to being a monster that I was absolutely petrified of, that I walked around on eggshells around every day that I was with him. And all that came about mostly because his addiction to ecstasy pills. For a brief moment, we went to marriage counseling, and our therapist said that he was narcissistic, which I had pretty much already figured out on my own. If you are familiar with someone who's a narcissist, I mean, there's just red flags everywhere, and very distinct characteristics that you cannot deny. And if that's your case as an individual, I pray for you, and my heart goes out to you, because it's a horrible way to exist with someone that you love. Anyway, he was narcissistic on top of that, but he did a period of almost 6 years in prison. And when he came home, of course, his choice of friends were Um, Still stuck on their old ways. The street life, of course, the hay, pop pills, drink, smoke, get hella women, all that. So, of course, he being a follower, and I know when he sees this video, and believe me, he will see this video. Um, I know when he sees this video, he will disagree and probably be pissed off and have plenty to say. But he is definitely a follower and always has been. If he is leading, it's usually with people younger and more impressionable than him that probably are on the same thing he is. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yes, he came home thinking that things were the same, that X pills were even the same, which they weren't. And things got out of control and spiraled downward very quickly. At the blink of an eye, over the most minute things, he would just spaz out completely, screaming at the top of his lungs, getting right here in my face, screaming at the top of his lungs so much that his spit is flying all over my face. But what he was screaming was for me to lower my voice, for me not to talk to him that way, that I better respect him. Right here, though, screaming it at the top of his lungs. Snatching me up and tossing me around. Coming in at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and snatching me out of bed, interrogating me about things he had concocted in his head. And he would accuse me of, mind you, I went absolutely nowhere and did absolutely nothing. In fear of the consequences that would come behind it with him. Sad to say, he had my son walking on eggshells as well at the time. And that's probably my biggest regret, that I allowed that to go on as long as it did, with my son feeling the way he did and him not being his father. But that's another subject too, because I definitely have strong opinions about us as women, not realizing that our children are going through what we're going through. And so we need to keep that in mind. Another story, another subject, another day. But the cheating, oh Lord, it was ridiculous. I mean, it was numerous women that I was finding out about. And sexually, we went from having the absolute best sexual connection I think two people could ever have. I mean, our sex was astronomical, porn star status, all the way, all the time, to being where he couldn't even perform as a man. I mean, the addiction was so bad. It would go on for hours and hours, and he could not perform. It was ridiculous, and this was not like him. He was absolutely just mean. I can't even put it into words. Everything bothered him. I mean, he would snap out. We're driving down the street, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs in my face as I'm driving, grabbing the steering wheel, jerking it to the side of the road, throwing the car into park, snatching me up. He had bit me before. He had threatened my life numerous times. He has snatched me out of a shower over somebody's number he saw on my phone, which was innocent. However, he wasn't trying to hear that. He has showed up at my job, threatened people at my job, tried to run me over in the parking lot of my job because I wouldn't talk to him and I had to be in to my job at a certain time. He has kicked in doors to get to me even after we were split up. And so I left him, needless to say. We were separated, but I still remain married to him in hopes that he would go to rehab and counseling and get help. He swore he would, and that went on for probably about a year or so. And I still hung in there because I loved him and I hoped that he could change, and I knew this was his addiction, not him. But sorry, I was just reading a text. That was quite interesting. He knows who he is if he happens to watch this video. That just made me smile and blush. That's nuts. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so after about a year and of him promising and it not happening, I decided to just kind of block him on everything for the most part. And so I did that, and I still hadn't filed for divorce, but I will never forget it as long as I live. I was working second shift at my job at the time, and it was around lunchtime, and I happened to get on Facebook. And a Facebook friend of mine, I'm so grateful to her. Her and I met through Facebook. She was actually a friend of his. We had never met in person, and we happened to meet one time at the nail shop. And when we introduced ourselves, and she's so real, and I've always had a certain level of respect for her, higher than a lot of females, regardless of how much we know each other or not. She's always been real, and she's not afraid to speak her mind and worry about what people would think. But anyway, she tagged me in a post that somebody had posted about my ex-husband. And what it was them saying that he had attempted to molest their 15-year-old daughter, whom he was like an uncle to. He had been around her entire life. He was friends with her mother for, I believe, over 20 years or somewhere around there. So I immediately broke down. Of course, I started reading the comments, and come to find out this was nothing new for him. But I reached out to his best friend, the mother of the woman, or excuse me, the young woman, the 15-year-old, and her and I had a conversation, and yes, true enough, it was true. And he lied to me about it, of course. At that point, we weren't really having contact, any kind of contact. However, it had happened several weeks before, and he had lied about what had happened. So I hadn't spoke to him since. Unbeknownst to me, there was someone else that came forward a little while later. Excuse me, that was a 16-year-old boy. And it absolutely disgusted me, and of course broke me down even more, that the man I had loved for so long could be this person, and I had no idea. It's absolutely disgusting. I couldn't fathom the thought, and it changed me forever. It's like my entire world had been flipped upside down. And everybody in this town, this small ass town that I live in, this miserable, negative town that feeds on people's downfalls, literally sits back and preys on people's downfalls rather than support and uplift. Everybody knows us as us. And so I knew that that was going to be a huge challenge because everybody was going to have something to say. And here I was left to pick up the pieces and deal with this and be confronted with this. And of course, as a coward would, he hightailed it out of state, probably in fear of being killed more so than anything. But needless to say, I had to stay and deal with the aftermath of his actions. But that changed me. And I'm saying all this to say that I've known this man since he was 19 years old. He's 35. And I know for a fact that the real him off drugs would never. I would put my life on that. But him on the pills, it's been proven numerous times this is who he turns into. And I'm not saying that maybe there's not some underlying tendencies there from childhood or from maybe a situation that he had went through, and I'm not aware of that either. I'm just saying that consciously he is not that man. um I think that the pills just trigger things that have been there and that he's been able to suppress because he knows it's wrong. But I think that the underlying tendencies have been there, and the X pills just expose them. They bring it out. Not going to say I've never popped X. I did several years ago, maybe '04 on and off until maybe '07, '08. Which the ecstasy pills back then were a totally different form of ecstasy than they are now. Now this shit is just too much. Neither one are any good. And you shouldn't do them, of course. I know that now, but you live and learn. It's called Life's Lessons. I'm here today, and I am the way I am because of things like that. But I just know that I've talked to several other people, and they would agree, and a lot of them have been men straight from the streets who have agreed and said, this is what I got on when I was rolling on a pill. I know that ain't me. This is what I used to do when I was on a pill. I've seen this. I've seen guys do this. I've seen guys try to sleep with their blood relatives. Grown women getting in bed with, or excuse me, grown men trying to get in bed with their grown female cousins. And this is the result of them rolling off these pills. So let me close in saying, when you're on Facebook or Snapchat or watching someone's story or whatever the case may be, or even in real life, and these guys and girls are glorifying these pills, just remind them. I mean, technically they're getting high on their own supply. Tell them that. And if they don't buy that, go on and Google it. Hit them with that. Can't deny facts. They speak for themselves. So that's just something that was weighing on me. And I'm not going to focus on that any longer. Hopefully, my little experience maybe shed some light on how severe the situation is, and maybe spark something in you to reach out to somebody you know who does these pills, or maybe needs to hear what it could do. I could go on for days about the actions of my ex due to his addiction, but overall, you get the point. It's crucial, so spread the word. You guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.